You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome to Built to Convert, the podcast where we explore strategy, analytics, and creativity, how that comes together to drive meaningful growth. I'm your host, Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive. And each episode, we sit down with marketers, founders, and operators who are building real momentum inside today's most interesting companies. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive, the performance marketing agency for brands that are serious about SEO, paid search analytics. If your internal team needs expert horsepower or your strategy could use sharper insights, we help B2B and SaaS brands drive measurable revenue with less guesswork. Learn more at sessioninteractive.com. All right. Today, we've got Brad Hendrickson, who is the Chief Client Officer and partner at Magnetic Creative, a branding and marketing agency focused on helping consumer goods companies discover their true north. With a sharp eye for storytelling and strategic growth, Brad leads client relationships across CPG, brand strategy, and market expansion. In this episode, we'll explore how to build meaningful creative partnerships, the evolving role of a brand in early stage investing, and how leaders can blend intuition with data in modern marketing. Mouthful there, Brad, but you're covering it all, man.
Yeah,
Brad,
thanks.
Good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Nice to see you too. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Let's start. I always like to kick things off with just kind of a little bit of background about you, and kind of establish your own credibility. Talk to me about what you've been up to and a little bit about your career.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll kind of start at the beginning and make it brief, but I've been entrepreneurial my entire life. And the way that I found this pathway that I've been on is kind of the byproduct of an entrepreneurial journey. I went to college for business and marketing. And as I left college, job market was tough. It was hard to get your foot in the door with an agency, things like that. So I started my own personal training business, and that was pretty much my first foot into entrepreneurialism. And it was one of those things where, I'd make $1,000 and spend 1,001 trying to get the business moving. And ultimately, I had a portfolio of really cool clients. And one of them worked at a broker firm that helped brands, licensed brands, celebrity brands get into major retail. And this was before social media and branding was really a thing. It was more about product, price, and value to the retailer. And I ended up going and working at that company for a long time. And the interesting thing that I saw throughout that process was brands would go present to a retailer and, they'd go in with a really good package, and the retailer would say, okay, awesome. This seems like it's going to be good on my shelf. What are you doing to drive velocity to the aisle? And most brands were like, I don't know. We thought getting it on the shelf was the point here. And then you guys drove people to a Walmart and so forth. And that evolved over about 5 years, where we eventually started giving marketing services to some of the brands, but it was really not organized. And so we spun off an agency from that broker firm that I was the executive director of for about 4 years. And we supported CPG brands, building things within the four walls of a retailer, building holistic alignment of their brand across all touch points from web to digital. Influencer engagements were starting to become really big at that time. And it got me very heavily vested in the agency side and the brand side. I'll be brief, but spent a little bit of time in consulting on the revenue side as a fractional CRO. And that really opened up my eyes to the holistic alignment between sales and marketing. And when both teams aren't fighting each other on lead quality and so forth, what the powerhouse of that alignment can really do. And over those years, what I've noticed is how that impacts CPG brands. There's such a fragmented approach to their sales process and their branding and marketing efforts. And so here at Magnetic, and what we're doing recently and what we've done for a long time is really try to break down those silos and build ourselves as a really good partner for brands to explore what it looks like to build not just marketing activity for the sake of activity, but performance-based marketing and what's going to make a retailer happy, sales teams happy, and ultimately the bottom line and growth happen. So it's exciting. I love what I do. I get to work with a lot of cool people and meet cool people like yourself.
Hell yeah, Brad. No, that's an awesome breakdown. I love it. I didn't realize I think you had mentioned this in the past, but the gym, the personal training, and just getting out there, the hustle mentality, yep. And then transitioning and consulting as a CRO, like you're right, just immense perspective.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how that path really evolved you into becoming chief client officer, because that's a big role. I mean, and you've been doing this a while now, but Magnetic's no small agency. No, you've been around a while. You've got a lot of credibility. Evolving into that is a big deal. Talk to about that and kind of how you've seen success while you've been at Mag.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think as my career has kind of progressed, I've found myself in a lot of rooms that I don't necessarily think I should have been in. And I think imposter syndrome is a funny thing that you don't have it until you have it, and then it never goes away, right? But being very young, even at that broker firm, I was maybe 22, 23 years old and sitting at a dinner with Guy Fieri, Doug McMillan, and Mike Duke from Walmart as Mike Duke transitioned Doug into being CEO. And I'm sitting over in the corner with a warm tequila shot in front of me, afraid to take it, just watching the whole room move forward. And that's kind of been the happenstance throughout everything. And I think throughout that evolution, I've really learned to be on the sidelines what's meaningful to high level people at branding companies, what they talk about, what's really making their tick, what they care about from a brand perspective, a marketing perspective, how that aligns with their sales goals. And so as I matured throughout my career, that kind of toolkit that I had developed allowed me to really impact the decision making from a high level with some of these brands. And so when I found Magnetic, we've got about 120 people globally, had hundreds of clients. I was going to come in and help them on a growth initiative to help redefine their growth marketing. And once I kind of dug in and met the stakeholders there, I saw the bigger picture, and what they were really lacking was somebody that was able to relate to the clients, who understood consumer packaged goods, what they needed to do at a retail level, and really create that end-to-end touch point for understanding as we're building these solutions for our clients. And so primarily in my role where I sit is helping scope and understand what annualized programs look like, but all the way from 100,000 feet to boots on the ground, what's happening from a merchandising perspective at the retail level. And I think ultimately being able to synthesize that information succinctly to stakeholders at the client level is really important, not only building that trust, but then allowing Magnetic to do what we do best and to thrive without being micromanaged and run things, and allow our creativity to really shine in the activities that we do. So it's a lot of fun, but I have a lot of 2 a.m. wake ups, a little anxious about what I've got going on the next day, and who I'm speaking with and who I'm going to be in the room with. So it's good. But I've been doing it now for, close to 17 years, and I wouldn't change a thing. I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, that's good perspective. I love that. Let's unpack CPG a bit. Talk to me about some of the biggest opportunities or threats for CPG brands that are essentially adapting to this tech-driven go-to-market shifts. I mean, obviously, we'll get into that dreaded AI acronym soon, but talk about that, some of those opportunities that you're seeing with brands, and then brands maybe that aren't capitalizing on them, they're seeing kind of those threats to their essentially their ecosystem.
Yeah, really good question. I think as far as opportunities arise, I think one of the main things I talk to brands, if we're talking early stage, is you really have to decide who you want to be when you grow up early on, way earlier than you need to. A brand needs to mature far past or far earlier in their journey than I think they used to need to. So what do I mean by that? So you have an early stage company, they make a phenomenal product. It's probably going to do great in retail, but they also want to do a .com, and they're raising money, trying to figure out what they want to do. Well, those tributaries both require substantially different types of investments. If you're going .com, you build a website and then you create a huge demand gen initiative with tongue-in-cheek ads and TikTok fueling your top of funnel, and very conversion-centric mentality that requires a lot of money in order to fuel that and compete against a highly competitive e-commerce market. If you're talking, I want to be successful at brick and mortar and my e-com is a byproduct, you're talking about getting a PO at Walmart for maybe $5 million that you don't have. And then your asset-based lending, trying to get the money to fulfill that PO on a net 90 payment term. And, these types of things can bankrupt a company, even though it's a successful motion for a business and it's all they want. For me, the opportunity, like as I stand for brands, really trying to stand out, is not being afraid to be bold, but it's to pick a lane. Early on, decide if you're going to be the Dr. Squash of the world, and one day you're going to have Sydney Sweeney scented soap or whatever they just launched, that then about 2 weeks later they were acquired for $2 billion. But decide who you're going to be very early on and commit to it. But when you commit to that brand, it's not just creating a brand that you think is fun. You have to understand the customer first and foremost and know who eventually is going to be deciding, with my fixed budget in my shopping cart or proverbial digital shopping cart, whatever it is, that item is going to make it in there and replace with potentially another item. And so when you're drafting up who your brand is, your story, how you want to speak, your mission, data to me is the biggest thing that brands overlook early on. They just create for the sake of creating without the analysis and the why behind the what when they're creating it. So I think the biggest opportunity for brands to work with strategy companies that are able to help them define exactly, okay, this is who we're targeting. This is how they like to be spoken to. These are their shopping habits. Let's create a brand that speaks to that person. So we're not pushing the product down their throat, but rather they're pulling it into their shopping cart. Ultimately, a big threat for brands as it stands now, well, I'll use another dreaded word in CPG now, is the tariff word, right? Yeah. That's causing a lot of pressure at the retail level and people having to come up with, pricing concessions at the shelf because, I'll use Home Depot for an example. They don't want to pass that cost on to the customer when they have an everyday low price item. And so they're asking brands, hey, we need you to fuel and give us, $5 million to help fuel the pricing increase that we're seeing. And so that's a big threat. I think the other thing, the threat to incumbent brands, I think is the biggest one, is being too big, too clunky to pivot. You have these new brands coming in that are so bold. They are so cool and they know who they are and they know who they want to sell to and they know their audience and they're taking market share. And you're seeing companies like Hershey, that's, 100-year-old candy company, but gobbling up influencer brands at this point, trying to stay relevant. And to me, they have the capital in order to take that very inherent competitor and make it a part of their portfolio. But some brands don't. And we're just kind of slowly seeing those die off because they haven't committed, they haven't pivoted early on, and they just continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are some awesome insights. Good old Hershey, shout out.
Yeah, Hershey, send some chocolate my way.
Customer journey, buyer journey, that's a lot of what you were kind of referencing indirectly a little bit. What do you guys do at Magnetic that helps brands really hone in? I think brands in certain cases will say, yeah, we know our ICP, we know our personas. Yeah, we have a great grasp on the customer journey, but I think you and I both know that a lot of those brands just don't have that touch. Is it they're lacking the focus? Is it they lack the real world customer experience knowledge? They're not allocating funds to do that. They're so fixated on the product. What's happening there? And how do you guys help brands kind of steer them in? Oh, we've done that already. No, let's do this and let's try to do it right. And knowing that it's ever evolving. Right. Just because, hey, I honed in on Brad's journey for this particular product. Brad's going to change. He's going to evolve as things do. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I look at it in a couple different ways. Here's the interesting perspective. So I'm part of an investment group called the Angel Group, and we sit and listen to a lot of early stage CPG investment pitches. And 9 out of 10 times, everybody has the most amazing product that's ever been going to market. This is going to game change the way that you consume protein. This is going to game change the way you consume yogurt or whatever it is. And I'm a big believer, especially as we're looking now. And so I want to make sure I'm breaking this up the right way. We'll talk, customer journey. Is the product is, you hope the product sells itself, but what keeps somebody coming back is, we want the product to be good, but what are you doing to nurture that community and actually build something that somebody wants to be a part of? And so when we talk about what brands are doing incorrectly, there's this mentality most times, especially with newer brands, that our product is just game changing. It's just logical that this should be $1 billion company and I should raise all this money and it's going to be, the next big thing, right? And get gobbled up by Unilever. But what they're failing to recognize is everybody can build a product. You're seeing influencers develop a product line overnight and launch them. Kylie Jenner decides, hey, I want to do lip kits, sources it from somewhere in China, brings it over here. Builds $1 billion brand in a relatively short period of time because of her influence, not necessarily because the product is any better than another lipstick that you can buy on the shelf. If anything, you're buying something at a premium that is probably marked up, 1,000%. So what I do think a lot of people overlook is okay, we have this product, but what are we really building? What is the experience that we're building for somebody who's not only going to be confident in purchasing the product because they know that it's quality, but it's something that they want to be able to showcase and tell their friends, hey, look what I purchased. And a lot of that comes from committing to the brand. And what are you doing from a brand perspective to nurture it? So if you're a Gen Z millennial based brand that you're going to market, are you capturing the audiences where people are searching? Are you building scrollable content, user generated content that seems organic and authentic? Are you syndicating that content around multiple touch points where it all looks the same, feels the same, talks the same? So every time somebody sees your brand, they're saying, oh yeah, I saw them on TikTok. Oh, I just saw them on an OTT ad, and it's starting to resonate where they want to look for you. And then they're at the tail end of the buyer's journey. They know who you are. They know what they want. They go to the website. Are you creating a really nice shopping experience? Is the path to purchase? Is the price point there? Is free shipping there? That's a table stakes thing that I think a lot of companies go, our 3PL, it's $1 a shipment, so we have to charge for it. I would assume that in your costs and your margin, because consumer mentality is the Amazon model, right? I expect some free shipping. Yep. Then you get lucky enough for somebody to actually purchase it. Now you got to get them to come back. And sometimes, yes, you're going to have a diamond in the rough where the product is just so good that somebody's going to go, man, I would buy this regardless. Like, I can't see my life without it. And off the top of my head, I can't actually think about what product that would be, but there's got to be 1 out of 100 that is just primo and everybody loves it. But when somebody purchases, what are the things that are keeping them coming back? What are the community driven activities? Are they engaging with you on social media? Are you sending them promotions and things that are going to go, oh my gosh, this company actually cares about me and wants me to come back, and I want to be a part of it. So many times I'm a chronic shopper because I love the path of, I walk retailers for hours a week just looking at new SKU counts. How are people merchandising things? What is Target doing with its PDQ setup? Like, I'm very interested. And then from a digital perspective as well, when I purchase something, what's the nurture look like post-purchase? Are they keeping me coming back? Why are they keeping me coming back? And I think so many brands say we're going to put so much money into the 4 walls of the retailer when we first go out there, and so much money into the product that they forget that they need to build something. And I think my last point on this is, if you look at some of the really successful M&A side of CPG at the moment, the brands that are getting rolled up all are very cheeky. Humor, other than maybe sex, I think humor is the second thing that sells the best, particularly in consumer goods. Mm-hmm. And so many of these new brands that are getting acquired have this beautiful brand, this beautiful voice. You can almost see what they would look like as a person. And I think so many other brands that just kind of sit on the shelf and are table stakes, they don't do a great job at that. And it's starting to show now with recent M&A activity starting to increase.
Yep. You're mentioning a lot of awesome points. I mean, one thing the word you came up and was resonating with me quite a bit was just community, right? And how, for whatever reason, we've had a variety of clients and then pitches related to companies that have communities, and it's just amazing to see how they are or not or they're not harnessing the power of user generated content. And it's like, hey, you got this immense community, and we know these people are engaged and excited, but we don't really know how to monetize it, or we just don't know how to really build it up and fixate on really promoting it. And it's wild to me because there's just unbelievable, it's just endless opportunities with those people that are.
Well, it's also a lot of effort. And if you're looking at manpower within an organization, whether you're early stage or late stage, you have to look at the butts that are in the seats, and are you actually capable of doing what you want to do, which is why I think agencies still exist today. Even when brands raise a bunch of money, the thought of hiring a community manager, then you need somebody to manage them, and do they report to the CMO, but now the CMO can't be in retailer meetings because he's running a team. And when you're thinking about infrastructure too, there's a heavy burden on being able to execute so much of this. Mm-hmm. And when I think of community, right? Nurture flows, bifurcation of personas, and how you're speaking to people, it's a lot of manpower. I mean, at Magnetic, we've got dozens of people working on this, even for a small subset of our brands that want to build that community. And one really good example that we have is, I won't name the client, but we have a pet brand that we work with. And, one of the things over time is they've built this huge database of people, but they're not doing anything to nurture and retarget. And so now we're doing segmentation of how the age of the dog, what breed is the dog, what type of supplements did they take, setting up automations to where when the pup turns 1, this is the birthday kit that they need for this type of species, and nurturing and really facilitating this amazing thing where we're now, as we've been engaging in this for quite some time, we're getting so many people going, I would love to do a testimonial or tagging us on social media with a video that we can then reshare. And it's these little touches, but I mean, you're looking at thousands of hours of work, segmentation. I mean, our chief growth officer is maybe one of the most talented growth marketers I've ever met, who's been leading the charge on that. So, I mean, it's millions of dollars in employee costs that a young brand would have to absorb and train up and do. So it's really a balancing act on how you're growing and how you want to allocate those resources. But to me, it's effort and intelligence. And without that, if you have a founder that's obsessed with product, you're probably going to overlook those things until you're going, damn, I wish we did that a year ago. And then you're having to pick up the pieces, right?
Making a strong case, Brad. Let's keep the agency model going here for both of our selfishly.
we can dig into that if you want to start talking AI, because I've been, I think it was so funny. I mean, you're in the agency space, and I'll try to quant this, call it maybe 12 months ago, right? AI started popping up for us. And as the leaders of our teams here, it was something that we had to rightfully address. And, there was the biggest fear, right? And I think social media does a very interesting thing of rebel rousing and getting people over anxious over something that it doesn't necessarily need to be. And I'm by no means saying AI isn't a necessary component to our businesses at this point, because it very much is. But when we look at AI is only as good as it stands now, the inputs that you're able to be putting into it. And so, I mean, I think AI, when you're talking creative, it needs orchestrators and conductors being able to train it. And so many times, even with the advancements in like Google VO3, it's more expensive to train a consistent model than it would be just to go shoot that with people and talent and location, because it's still not quite there. I have seen some agencies do some remarkable things with AI at this point that gets me excited for the efficiencies and the things that we're going to be able to provide clients. But when you're talking about a holistic marketing campaign, I mean, there's touch points all over the place: social media, paid media, demand generation, email marketing, content as a service. There's so many things that your brand needs to do. You can't simply plug that into AI and say, go do it. And even if you used a fragmented AI execution model, you're going to have inconsistencies through the way that the AI produces all of that. You still need holistic organization. And so for me, number one, we have MSAs where we can't even use AI for some of our clients at this point. I think there's this perception that clients are banging on the door going, we need to be using AI. And I'll say, just from our case, and I've spoken to some other large creative agencies, that's not necessarily where we are at. The way that we've adopted it in Magnetic is much more from an efficiency perspective. We utilize AI in a number of things that we do within the systematic approach to our agency, whether it's interdepartmental communication, briefing, social media, things like that, that we feel is really advantageous. Even for content productions, we can now do vertical content, and through AI, expand the backdrops of that content for substantially less than we would be paying for actually building out a full set. And so there's ways that we can pass those things along, but I'm really curious to hear your take on it. But to me, it's something that when you systematically integrate it, and we have a head of AI operations on our team right now that's allowing us to do that and keeping control and all of that within our company. But what are you seeing? What's causing you any anxiousness with AI, or are you feeling the same way?
Yeah, you're positioning it really well, just in the sense that it's only as good as the input, and it still remains true, and hopefully for the foreseeable future, to a certain extent, essentially on certain tasks, that a human is 100% mandatory to be involved, to monitor. I mean, we've seen workflows and other AI related initiatives hallucinate like crazy.
Sure.
Thank God none of that's gotten to a client. Right. Because it's wild what it can do, which is, and some of it's completely irrelevant. I think positioning it internally, and you're 100% accurate. I mean, we're seeing that as well on the demand gen front, for that clients are knowing that we're utilizing it, but there's a reason why they want us. They want our experience. Right. And that's something that AI doesn't possess. It doesn't possess perspective, and that's the stuff that we come to the table. So we're positioning AI as more of, yes, all the use cases you mentioned and others as well, but positioning it more of a strategic partnership to allow us to ideate, and perhaps outline and take care of some of those mundane or remedial tasks so the team can fixate on more strategic tasks. And it's not just AI, right? I think that's another thing that people get confused on. Let's just AI it or something, some bullshit. But ultimately, it's utilizing workflow technology that's integrated with AI, in certain cases not integrated with AI, to automate certain things and again, just to start there. And I think that's the best use case, honestly, at least to get people started, is to what are those mundane, what are those remedial tasks, what are those time-consuming tasks that you can map out, and then utilize a consultant or play around yourself. And so that's the big thing.
I think it's exciting for you guys on the demand gen side. That's where I'm seeing a lot of AI actually be the most beneficial in the intuitive learning and the ability to do things, I think, quicker and more dynamic. Again, like, you need a person. You can't just allow it to run free, or you could wake up with $1 million spend on a pathway that you didn't even want to take a client. You know what I mean? But are you feeling like AI is helping move faster, the things that you guys do, or be more dynamic? Are you seeing the benefits of the tools at this point as you've integrated them?
Yeah, I mean, the same question for you, honestly, is in certain cases we are. Other times, like as you mentioned, again, we're not creatives, right? But we're utilizing creativity in other ways, essentially like campaign strategy in particular. And we're noticing that, again, it's helping us ideate. In certain cases, it's a bit too, at least initially, like the last couple of years when we were testing it, the prompt process outweighed it was essentially too time consuming than to actually have a human go and do that work. Right. Yeah. So it was like a cool thing that we tested early on. And now with advancements, as Brad, I mean, things are changing at a ridiculous clip, and certain things that we were like, okay, we've adopted a process we utilize 60% human here. Now it's maybe down to 20%. Right. And I'd say that's still a subset of all the stuff we're doing. And those pundits that you're mentioning, those rabble rousers or whatever, like really like, coming for your business and your careers. And I think there's a tiny bit of truth to that, but ultimately it's just like, I haven't seen anyone that's utilizing, core AI across the board with automation that is, providing the value. The theme that comes up for me, Brad, for you guys in particular, and for everyone, honestly, is the desire for authenticity. And I think that's going to be a really big thing. I had a podcast, shout out to Lisa, runs an awesome agency. And she was just mentioning about, highlighted this Pepsi commercial, and it was all AI generated, and people just, I forget when it was, over Christmas or something like that, but the feedback was overwhelmingly people like, man, what is this? Like, yeah, we yearn for authenticity. We want that human story and that component. So, how about you on the creative side there? I'm always fascinated, as creatives, at least in my mind, tend to be maybe a little bit more reluctant to utilize tools like that. I know we talked about it briefly in the past. And then where are they now? Like with the evolution of stuff, I'm curious what you've seen on your end.
Yeah, so definitely some reluctantness, because again, you have creatives that are passionate about the work they do. The authenticity, I think, that's the key takeaway from all of this. But it's also their touch on things that are creative. And so in the beginning, number one, the creative output just wasn't there. It wasn't as solid as it is now. And even now, I wouldn't say that it's good enough for a brand to just adopt AI and not do content shoots or things like that. The thing that we've used it a lot for that helps now is the efficiencies in our RFP process, or when we're pitching brands, the ability to create, like mock creative and examples without actually having to do spec shoots or things like that. We can actually develop things relatively quickly within AI to showcase our vision from a perspective that's not just us talking about it, I think is really important. There's lots of tools, with AI integrations. We're a big Figma shop here, and even Figma allows some AI to help streamline workflows and move things along and create some efficiencies even just in the creative process. But we're very proud of the creative that we do, and I don't think that's going anywhere. And when I look at some of the brands that are still winning a lot of these big awards, I mean, there's no substitution. And not to bring up a brand that was down, but I think is moving back up. But You look at the Super Bowl ads for Bud Light with Shane Gillis and Post Malone. AI is not creating that. And I mean, those resonate. They are exactly who the target market is. They're hilarious. And you have two key figureheads that mean something to a customer base. And albeit that was probably an extremely expensive production, shout out Anomaly Agency. They did a phenomenal job with all of that. And I'm sure it was pricey, but it hit. And we're still seeing those commercials on OTE, 7 months later or 5 months later. And so, we are, it's the same perspective as I'm talking about these legacy CPG brands and their inability to see or pivot in the middle of their workflows, and then they become dinosaurs. I think as an agency, we have a responsibility to understand and dissect and keep up with these tools and integrate them as appropriately as possible, because we don't want to look back in 5 years and say, we wish we would have started this AI integration effort way earlier. And now we're really digging out of a hole that we didn't necessarily need to be in. But at the same time, I think we have to be careful. And one interesting thing is I was speaking with a legal team last week, and you have a lot of companies that are saying, everybody go use AI. Well, you could have somebody on a studio team uploading proprietary client documentation into ChatGPT that has now violated your T's and C's, your MSA, and maybe nobody will ever find out. But there's lots of legal things that I don't think agencies have necessarily put at the forefront of how they are monitoring AI. And that was one thing for us, is we had to make sure that our terms and conditions, our MSAs were all locked in with AI language, how we were using it, even the way that we deploy logins throughout our agency and the way that people are actually allowed to upload things is all tracked within timestamps, signatures. And so I think you also have to be very careful. And I think there's a lot of people, and it's probably on the smaller agency side, that are a little more laissez-faire with the way that they're using the tools. And again, you may never get found out, but at the same time, as you're starting to build up and you want to be a foundational piece in this AI movement, I think it's really important for you to check all the boxes and make sure that you're doing, number one, you're doing right by your client and you're keeping the information that you're doing for them sacred and their information sacred. But number two, protecting your agency and your people and teaching them best practices so they can be the best versions of themselves using the tool and continue to evolve and level you up as well. So it's been meticulous. That's why we hired and have an AI operations manager on staff, is lots of cooks in the kitchen in some circumstances and lots of really important documentation that we want to make sure that we keep very secure.
Yeah, you're spot on with just that. I think that is a big thing. Is there's always advocates out there, and we advocate for it to create individual GPTs for individual clients and utilizing it as kind of like a learning management system. A lot of other use cases. But I think it's important there's a moral and ethical responsibility to understand like how you create that. There's a lot of services out there that can gate certain things and ensure that it's a bit more secure. I think people are utilizing OpenAI and other LLMs as they're like just divulging incredibly personal details, not to mention client things. And people have no clue on how that data is going to be utilized. Trust me, OpenAI is going to monetize the hell out of their platform, and others are going to monetize it a lot more. So just be careful around that. So really good insight, good tack there.
Yeah.
Brad, switching gears here a little bit. How does your team help clients stand out when so many brands essentially are the same? I think we talk about this briefly, just around it's like less about being the best and more about being different. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, I think standing out, there's a couple different ways to approach it. You can be the person that's in the middle of a crowd screaming and yelling, and people are going to look at you, but is it for the right reason? Or do you want a brand that people are going to stand behind and follow? They're walking down the street and you're like, I want to be a part of that. And so as we're looking at how we make brands stand out, I always default back to the data side. We have to understand what makes those customers want to purchase an item like theirs. And as we figure that out, to me, it's the messaging, and it's making somebody feel heard. It's making somebody go, oh my gosh, this solution was purpose built for me. Irregardless, it could be a mop, it could be a bag of Doritos. But is it speaking to me, and is it doing the right things emotionally that I can connect to the brand? And with that, you start to build on this household name perspective of people going, man, I've heard of that. I want to hear about that. I'm starting to see it in more places. There are times when yelling and screaming is the right thing. And there's some opportunities where brands can take advantage of being loud. And, maybe it's for the right reasons, maybe it's for the wrong reasons. But I think the age old no press is bad press. Sometimes stands true. But for us, it's about creating something that's unique to that brand. And in a world where, there's so much content, there are so many things to digest. I think if we just shut off content production today, we could all live to be 500 and still not make it through our feed in Instagram or TikTok. I think all the content that needs to be developed is already out there. And so for us, it's creating something that's scroll stopping, and it's finding ways to analyze platforms to make sure that we're creating something that a customer is going to stop and be entertained with relatively early on. I think the other important thing with standing out is I used to call it the rule of seven. It's what I learned in business school. I have since been educated that Stanford has changed it to the rule of 11. But it's a customer has to see your brand in 11 different ways and 11 different touch points for it to begin to resonate as credible, authentic, and something that they start to feel more comfortable with. And so for us, it's identifying very early on your brand's the nucleus, and what are those 11 touch points that we're creating? And are they looking the same, feeling the same, sounding the same, and resonating the same way? So when a customer sees you one time, they may just scroll right past it. They see it in a different mechanism a second time, they may scroll a little bit slower, third, fourth, fifth. And all of a sudden you start to go, this brand seems like something that I should be a part of. And that helps galvanize authentic alignment with the brand, as opposed to the, hey, let's stand and light our hair on fire and everybody's going to look, but you're burning, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. It reigns supreme. I think two is curious your thoughts around two core elements that are not new concepts by any means, but I think resonate with me when you say stuff like that around how do you differentiate. It's around content distribution and content diversification is big thing. You mentioned a household name like Bud Light or things like that, but it's whether it's a commercial, whether it's a podcast, whether it's whatever it is, like the content can be digested in a limitless amount of forms. And it can be value add to so many different people. And brands. And then I love what you put too, is just around the amount of content that's coming out. I did a talk at the Denver Digital Summit the other day, and just about the content and the sea of sameness. It's like we're seeing all of this with AI in particular, and people are getting better at the content generation with AI, but it's still garbage, right? Overall. So
how many times have you been served an ad with the same voiceover, the same AI text that's popping up? And at this point I'm going, whether I like that or not, I'm not even converting. I may swipe up just to get them the PPC charge on their credit card, but because I'm so disgusted with seeing the same type of ads all the time. Yeah. And that's why, I look at some agencies, and even though, there's an agency I follow, they're based out of San Diego. They're called the Raindrop Agency. Cool. And they are a very dynamic ad shop. They create unbelievable ads, all very tongue in cheek, and they're all relatively the same feel, but it's an ad type that actually does work. And the way that they're iterating on it and continuing to plug brands into this type of ecosystem, to me, it's really impressive. And I think the secret sauce too is finding innovators they can grasp onto what is trending right now, and then continue to keep their eye on what's coming next, and have the ability, confidence, and credibility to talk brands into this is what's coming. Because that is a big fear with a lot of CPG brands, especially ones that are later stage, is, they're afraid to push the boundaries a little bit. And even though they may say, hey, we want to be nuanced, we want to keep up with the times, you present something that's dynamic and out of the box, and they get a little gun shy of, whoa, what's that going to do to our brand? And I think having powerful leaders within your agency that are able to talk to those stakeholders, which is a big part of my role, and get that wall down and allow them to see what pushing the boundaries and those things could do, again, allows you to stand out, because you could be on the edge of something, and just don't be afraid to jump off if you have a trusted partner that can do it. So I am seeing some good content, but man, it's time for me to do a social detox. I can't look at this crap anymore, dude. It's bad. It's really bad. Yeah.
I know. That's, just think about like the cold outreach that you and I get too.
Oh my goodness.
Time, and the salesy emails and the exact.
I can't believe people are still doing that, thinking it's going to yield a result. It's like the Arabian prince continuing to hit my mom up to bail him out of jail. She's not going to convert.
The Prince of Nigeria, you need to pay up.
It's 9 million, or he's going to be stuck there. No, it's bad. And we, I think the cold outreach thing is really funny too, because it is the same thing. And that's where we're getting to with ads, is we're just desensitized. You're scrolling by it because you've seen it 100 times. And if you're using the same ad format, the same voice over text, the same look and feel, how are brands even differentiating themselves? It all looks the same, feels the same. You could have 5 different D2C brands that are running the exact same ad type. And so the ability to do something a little bit different stands out. And I mean, cold outreach is, God, one of those archaic things that nobody's ever really evolved on. And I still get ones that say, hey, test email. And I'm like, what? You didn't even plug my name in.
So lazy,
Yeah.
Brad, how do you maintain motivation? You're an enthusiastic guy. Things are changing. What inspires you? Who inspires you? Those are key items, because I think we're all subject to burnout. We're all subject to just, things overwhelming in our industry with AI and other things like that. So that can perhaps lead to just like, exhaustion. But yeah, talk to me about how you remain saying such a enthusiastic attitude and momentum. And then if there are some certain people around that inspire you, I'd love to hear who those are.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, the inspiration starts really close to home. 2 kids, 2 beautiful daughters. I think that's more inspiration than I'd ever need. But, for me, I always find fulfillment in doing something special. And for me, no matter how much effort it takes to put into that, to be a part of it's always worth the reward to me. And I think I got a taste of that when I was younger and was able to do something, saw the reward of it. And even though it's a year's worth of work for 1 minute of recognition, to me, that keeps me ticking. And knowing and working with brands and seeing what people are doing and being able to be a part of an amazing new brand story or an amazing campaign gets me extremely fired up. I still walk retailers and point to my wife, a brand that I worked with 12 years ago. Those types of things keep me extremely excited. Nice. Honestly, Tyler, talking with people like you gets me really energized. Like-minded people that are all trying to push the boundaries, keep the agency life, where it's at and continuing to grow up on that top line motion. To me, gets me really excited. Honestly, our founder at Magnetic, believe it or not just saying this to toot his horn, is maybe one of the most inspirational guys I've met. And I was going to come on at Magnetic part-time and consult and help with this. And one meeting with this guy, and I'm like, I got to be a part of this. Cool. You are building something special. I think visionaries and those that are really pushing the envelope, it intrigues me. And even though I'm maybe doing it on a small scale at a mid-sized agency in the United States, to me, it's still really fun and exciting to know that you have your foot in the door of always potentially something really special going on. But I'd ask you actually the same question.
I think it's funny. I was asked a long time ago, of all the clients you've worked with, Tyler, is there one that you would leave agency world and want to work with full time? And I worked with amazing people, amazing industries, amazing brands, but there isn't one where I'd be like, I want to go work with them full time, because I think that's kind of the nature of what we need, Brad. We need things switch up a lot of times. We need that creative challenge with a new brand or with a different brand or the same brand, right? We need to switch it up. So that's something that's always intrigued me and excited me about new projects. I think that's also kind of why we've never fully niched down, because we're so excited with other types of industries and stuff that is super creative and super fun to do, and unlocking those possibilities for those particular industries are awesome. So that's what I also think it takes a special person to enjoy working at an agency. And when you're surrounded by those people, I'd say a little bit of crazy. To me, it's a ton of fun. And I will say this, I will open my LinkedIn inbox to anybody that is thinking of leaving an agency and working full-time for a client. I did it. It was the worst experience I've ever had. And now I'm back. And again, the grass may feel greener for some people. I think the grass is green where you water it. And I know I can help somebody who's thinking about making that change or maybe frustrated in their role, but going and working for one brand it's my kryptonite. I need the change, the constant pressure, the ideation. It's too much fun. I can't give it up. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Brad, this has been a pleasure. Really appreciate your time and insights, and CPG, it's a beast and it's a super fun one. So your insights were really valuable. talk to us about how people can get a hold of you and get connected with you, and then talk about Magnetic as well.
Yeah. Anybody here, feel free to get into my LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn, whatever the URL is, /Brad Hendrickson, CCO at Magnetic. Feel free to send me a message. Email is also brad@mag.cr. It's always open. I always respond. Just don't send me something that looks like cold outreach, because as you've heard, I will probably just delete that. And then at Magnetic, just mag.cr, and contact us and let us know what you want to chat about. But you'll probably end up getting me at the end of the phone anyways. And I look forward to speaking with anybody that wants to talk through anything.
Love it, Brad. Yeah. And, shout out to you and shout out to what you guys are doing at Magnetic. I know we've known each other for a short time, but, I've seen what you guys have been up to and see the capabilities, and it is truly impressive and something that you should be proud of at the end of the day.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And likewise, I look up to you and what you guys have built too.
Hell yeah. I appreciate that. All right, Brad. Talk to you soon, man.
Cool. Awesome. Tyler, thank you, buddy.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.